to Together in the Word. Happy Thursday. I literally hopped in. I said, Happy Thursday. And Ruthie did her, hello, Rue. I'm not kidding. This chick, my sister's multi-poo. I had multiple people last week think that I have a dog. I do not have a dog. This is my sister's dog. And for some reason, when I film Together in the Word, she wants to like sit right on my lap. This is brand new. I've been watching Ruthie now. So again, I'm in tech sales. I work fully remote. My sister is a fourth grade teacher and she is Hunter and I's neighbor. So in the morning, I will go work out and then I'll come pick up Ruthie, and Ruthie, we're like her daycare. Lizzie refers to me as the nanny, Nanny Annie. So, and Hunter is the manny. So man nanny. But we keep Ruthie during the day until Lizzie gets back from school because Hunter's also remote. And I've done this now. Let's see, we moved into this apartment right after we got married. So we moved to this apartment like late September. I've watched Ruthie 5 days a week, pretty much since late September. It is March 9th. And last week, she just started this thing where she wants to sit in my lap. She was so clingy. I don't know, very clingy. And she like wanted to sit in my lap anytime I was on a meeting. Like if I wasn't talking and I was just doing internal operations, responding to emails, she was fine. She'd be sitting on the couch. But now it's like if I'm talking, she wants to be right on my lap. So I've now put, to my husband's chagrin, I've put a massive blanket on our big dining room table where I work, where this is filmed. And Ruthie is sleeping on it. So she is now sleeping on our dining room table. How are we doing, folks? Happy Thursday. Happy Together in the Word Thursday. Happy almost Friday Eve, almost weekend. Maybe it's already your weekend, depending on your work schedule. Maybe you don't even work. Maybe you make your own schedule. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and you never, ever get a day off because your job is your children. And they are a blessing, but they can be a lot. So wherever this finds you, thinking of y'all, praying for peace over this time together. I've mentioned this before, but I love podcasts because I think for me it's a way to, I don't know, it's such a reprieve for me. I feel like people are more vulnerable on podcast, possibly because you don't actually see the people that you're speaking with. So when you're in conversation, it really does feel like if I have guests, it is just us. You know what I mean? Like it is just us in the initial recording. Obviously not when it goes out and people listen to it, but it's just us in that conversation. So it does make you feel like you can open up a little bit more. And in these episodes where it's just like one-on-one, I'm talking to you. I love you if you're listening because you're a sister or brother in Christ, but I don't see you. Like I don't get to see that. So sometimes I'm like, oh, did I actually share that with y'all? And then I did, but it's fun. And I love podcasts for that reason. So I hope that whenever you listen to this podcast, it's a taste of what so many other podcasts I feel like bring me and the blessing that they are to me, which is sometimes just a friend saying like, me too, I'm struggling too, or I found this to be encouraging or this to be exciting, or life is hard right now, but we're still here. We're still doing the thing, like whatever it is. I hope that's what it is for me. It is for you too. Today we are in Genesis 9. 9 is fine. We are making our way through Genesis. I literally don't know. I was thinking about this last week. When are we actually going to be done with the Bible? I don't know. But I will say I have had so much fun doing this because even in church this past weekend, our preacher, Joel Thomas, was going through he was talking about the story of Cain and Abel, and he had a brilliant perspective that like I'd never even thought of. But I was like, wow, this is so cool because this study of like, I was just reading that. I was just reading about Cain and Abel. And sometimes with the Bible, without trying, we kind of pick and choose what we listen to and what we read and what we don't based off of like what our devotionals on or our Bible studies on. And when you just actually get in the Word and go through the Bible, like, guess what? When we hit Deuteronomy, it's going to be real a real challenge, but we're in it. We're committed. And that's the fun part of it. And I think that's when you're done with it, you're like, wow, there's all these ways I saw God in the story of Cain and Abel, or one day with Deuteronomy or Numbers or whatever, that I didn't think were possible or out there, you know? The goodness of God is not just in John, Mark, Luke, and Peter, and Paul's writings, and Acts, and in Timothy. It's also all throughout the Bible, including the Old Testament. Also, side note, I've started this new skincare. I have very sensitive skin. Like, you want to talk about sensitive skin? I have really, really freaky sensitive skin. When I was in high school, I got this facial done and it had retinol in it, retinol, whatever you want to call it. Massive allergic reaction. To this day, I've never gotten a facial. I am 27, almost a month out from being 28 years old. I have not gotten a facial since I was 14. I was that traumatized by this experience. I say that because when I found something that worked, I did not veer from it. But recently, I have been super excited to try. I've been seeing this everywhere. This is not an ad. This is actually like, I'm just excited about it. But I've been seeing this type of this skincare everywhere, and it's just been mentioned in a lot of podcasts that I listen to, and it's Primally Pure. Anyways, if you are on the brink of needing a new skincare, what I love about this is it is all natural. It's beef tallow based, which I know is good for you because my husband makes our own sunscreen. That makes us sound like super granola. Is that the right word? I don't know, but he does. He makes our own sunscreen, which it's very thick, but I love it. But it's beef tallow based, which is really good for your skin. And this skincare company, it's like everything is beef tallow based or whatever. So Primally Pure, I love it. I have very sensitive skin and my skin's been doing amazing with it. So that's neither here or there. But Genesis chapter 9. Let's go. Okay. Quick prayer. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for who you are. Help us see more of you in your word, this mighty word. Amen. All right. Then God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Every living creature on earth and every bird of the sky will be terrified of you. Everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea are under your authority. You may eat any moving thing that lives. As I give you the green plants, I now give you everything. But you must not eat meat with its life, that is, its blood in it. For the lifeblood I will surely exact punishment. For every living creature I will exact punishment. For each person I will exact punishment for the life of the individual, since the man was his relative. Whoever sheds human blood by other humans must his blood be shed. For in God's image, God has made mankind. Okay, there's a lot there. There is a lot there. So one, I think what's cool is, remember when we had my hubby on, Hunter, I remember him saying this, beat, bop, and back up in 8 verse 17, God told Noah, basically bring out all the living creatures, like bring them out of the ark, let them increase and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So God is telling Noah, I want these creatures to come with you. I want them to increase. I want them to multiply. I want those things. And then going back down, God said it again. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth. That includes you. So before he was just talking about, it was like, let them, the animals. But now God's saying it to Noah, like, and you. I want you to be fruitful. I want you to multiply. I want you to fill the earth. And what's so cool is, I think before, last time we talked about how Noah built an altar and how important that was. Noah built an altar before God gave them the blessing, which was like You go, you fill the earth, you be fruitful, you multiply. And then it says, every living thing of the earth and every bird of the sky will be terrified of you. Everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea are under your authority. You may eat any moving thing that lives. I give you everything. Okay, so this is what's really cool, and this is what's really interesting. And this points back to the redemption, just the redemption of God. Okay, so you have the Lord who made mankind in his image. And he made the world to be perfect. And then Adam and Eve sinned, because in order for the world to be perfect, but there to still be love in the world, humans had to have free will. You're not a robot that's programmed, AI that's programmed to love you, that's not love. Love is a choice. Me loving my husband, a choice. My husband loving me when I can be a little temperamental sometimes, that's a choice. He's not AI programmed to love me. He chooses to love me. We are bound by the covenant of marriage. That's a choice. That's what God had in mind with his relationship with humanity. He didn't want a bunch of robots saying, yes, I love you. Yes, I love you because I'm programmed to. He wanted people that genuinely gave his hearts to him. But with that came free will. And Eve sinned. Adam sinned. Sin was brought into the world. So then the world went bazonkers. And the first sin was eating an apple. The second sin was murder. Cain murdered Abel. And then from the line of Cain came so much deceit, came so much torment. My pastor was saying this yesterday, but from the line of Cain came the first man where it's tracked for weapons of war to come from. So turmoil, torment. God saw so much evil in the world, and then he brought the flood because in his judgment and in his justice, he wanted to bring justice to the world, but he saw favor in Noah. And guess Noah came from the line of Seth. Seth means in place of. That's what the name Seth means, in place of. Seth was the perfect righteous replacement for Abel, because remember, Cain killed Abel. So Abel's death was not in vain. Along came Seth. From Seth came the line of Noah. Noah came, and here God is saying to Noah, I've basically created this beautiful new world, and I give you. Now in our minds, we're like, yeah, but Noah found favor. Yeah, but Noah was human. Noah was human. Noah came from the same line of creation that all of Cain's line came from. The same people that were so evil, that were doing such crooked things. Noah came from that crowd. And of course, Noah found favor with the Lord because he walked with God. But he's still human. And God is still saying, I want to give you everything. I want to give you everything. I'm not holding you to what the people before you did. I want to give you everything. And God being omniscient, you know what I love about this moment where God was like, now I give you everything? God knows everything. So God knew that Noah was going to mess up. He knew that Noah's sons were going to mess up. He knew all the mess ups and the mistakes and everything that was going to come. But God still said in 9:3, I now give you everything. All of it's yours. All of it's yours. And notice the progression. Notice the progression. When God spoke to Noah in Genesis 8:15, which we read last time, come out of the ark. This is Genesis 8:15. Come out of the ark, you, your wife, your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you all the living creatures that are with you. Bring out every living thing, including the birds, animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on earth. Let them increase and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. God didn't tell Noah anything about him and his sons and his wives and his sons' wives. Noah didn't have wives, plural. Sorry, I missaid that. God did not say anything to Noah about him, his wife, his sons, or his sons' wives. God just spoke about the animals. Let them increase. And then what did Noah do? Was he like Cain, irritated about what he didn't get, what he didn't have? Jealous of the fact that the animals were called to increase and multiply, thinking about himself, like, but what about me? What about me? What about my family? What's going to happen to me? No, Noah built an altar. Noah built something to commemorate the magnitude and the fortitude and the grace and the kindness and the goodness of God in that moment. Before Noah got anything from God. He understood that as long as he had God, he had all he needed. This goes back to when Noah was building the ark. We talked about this. Noah didn't need to know how. He didn't need to know what was going to happen after the ark, as long as he knew God was with him. And so here we see Noah build a commemoration, not just to the Lord, but a reminder to himself of the fact that as long as God is with me, that is all I need. Y'all, do you know how scary that might have been for Noah? When God said, let them increase. Can you imagine on this ark, the type of animals that were on there? I'm not trying to get like conspiracy theory here. In fact, well, I don't know why I said conspiracy theory, like historical theory. But I was watching the new Steven Spielberg. It's called Dinosaurs, but it's like Planet Earth, but for dinosaurs. And it's #1 on Netflix, like the #1 TV show. And I clicked on it last night and I was like, huh. And then it made me start thinking, but wait, where do dinosaurs fit into Genesis? Naturally, I was thinking of Together in the Word and what we're reading about. I'm like, where do dinosaurs fit into this? And then I was thinking about, they were talking about this mega asteroid and meteoroid that like took out the dinosaurs. I was like, where does that fit into the Bible? And so I started doing some research. And this is what's interesting. This is kind of a side tangent, but I promise I'm going to relate it back to what we're reading in case you guys are curious where the dinosaurs fit into the Bible. So there's 3 different theories. There's the gap theory. And I am no scientist. Please do your own research. This is my Annie Mayfield Morlock's interpretation of the research. So don't take my word for it. Please look into it yourself. I will probably misstate some things. But from my understanding, there's 3 different theories. There's the gap theory, there is the new creation theory, there's the new earth theory, and the old earth theory. So the gap theory is basically that in Genesis, when it says God created the world in 7 days, we don't actually know how long a day was. Remember, God is outside of space and time. The 24-hour clock, could have been like we get our clock from like the circadian rhythm, like sunrise, sunset, right? But way back when God created the world, we have no idea. Remember, there was darkness, and then God said, let there be light. And then he created the moon and the stars. So we don't know how long a day was. A day could have been millions of years. And so in the gap theory, it's basically saying that, God created animals before he created humans. So maybe God created animals, including dinosaurs, and that lasted for millions of years, constituting a day in God's time. And then the dinosaurs obviously died off, they became extinct, and then humanity entered the picture. That's one theory. Another theory is the new earth theory, or I'll get to that one last. Another theory is the old earth theory, which basically God created in the lining of Genesis, God created an old earth when he first created earth, and then created when Satan rebelled and fell. God kind of destroyed that earth and created a new earth, which is where Genesis takes place. That's a theory. The last one, which I think is really interesting for us to think about, is that this idea of the new earth theory, which basically it's like, okay, Genesis took place, and including among the animals that God created were dinosaurs. And it's actually if you look up in Job and different accounts in the Bible, it talks about this, these creatures, creatures that looked like big reptiles, and Leviathan, and all these massive creatures of thighs of bronze, and scales, and all this kind of very much depicting what we would think of as a dinosaur all throughout the Old Testament. And so what the new earth theory is basically in Genesis, God created dinosaurs along with all these other types of animals. And then when the flood came, God's judgment, they say a big meteor took out all the dinosaurs. In history, where would that make sense? Because that would also take out the humans at the time. If it made the dinosaurs extinct, any humans in the world would also be extinct if it was of that magnitude. Always check your history. But what I'm saying is like the new earth theory is basically like dinosaurs were created by God. When the flood came, the flood was so massive, and it literally, like the Bible talks about, like basically like rocks falling out of the sky and the foundation of the earth being shaken, which kind of points perfectly to what supposedly happened with the dinosaurs. Like things were falling out of the sky, the foundation of the earth were split apart. There was the big earth mass called Pangea that was broken apart into all the continents we have today. And so the new earth theory is that Noah took some dinosaurs on the ark with him. Now that, you think, well, how's that possible? How can you put a T-Rex on an ark? Well, actually, a lot of dinosaurs, sorry, y'all, I'm so like, this is like fresh off my mind and it's so powerful. Hopefully this is interesting to you. But a lot of dinosaurs were actually, like the average dinosaur was the size of like a sheep. It wasn't like a T-Rex. So you could realistically put those on an ark. And for the bigger dinosaurs, it was likely that Noah would have chosen those in baby form, like juvenile, like teenage T-Rexes or baby T-Rexes, like something that was small and could likely fit on an ark. And so all that to say, it kind of makes sense, because then you continue to go on, and all in like Chinese culture and ancient Europe culture, when you see these like drawings of that humans did on caves, like way back in the day, a lot of them had like dragon-like figures, like these birds of the air that were like reptiles, and they were massive, which aligns very nicely to what dinosaurs looked like, which would make sense if they were preserved on the ark with Noah. So it's so fascinating. Anyways, I say this because imagine with me for a second, regardless of whatever you believe in regards, do your own history. But I think if you're listening to this, hopefully we can all agree that Jesus Christ is Lord, and if he's king and raised from the dead, and so we can have a relationship with God, then you have to believe all the Bible. So there was an ark, there was Noah, and on this ark were all these creatures. Maybe it wasn't dinosaurs, maybe it was lions and tigers and bears, oh my. To hear God say, let them increase, are you serious? Like, really? I imagine we spent the night at a zoo when I was in kindergarten, the Atlanta Zoo. I was terrified of the snakes getting out. But if I was like in the zoo and it turned into an ark and God was like, hey, Annie, I'm not telling you diddly squat about your family, but those snakes, those things they're going to increase. Let them increase. You kidding me? But then Noah goes out of the ark and he builds an altar. Despite that fear, if anything, I think sometimes we think building an altar in our life, we do that when we're like, man, I have to remember the good or God just did this amazing thing. I need to build an altar to remember it. Yes, absolutely. Like I remember I was laid off. I was in a dark time. God brought my husband to me in that time. Like, yes, that build an altar to remember when God did that. But also, Noah shows us that you can build an altar when you're in the middle of uncertainty. You're in the middle of that fear. You need to be reminded not of his current faithfulness that you just got evidence for, but his previous faithfulness. I think if anything, Noah coming out of that ark, he built an altar so that he could remind himself, coming out of this ark, the God who was with me in the ark, before the ark, who's always been with me, who I've always walked with, is still with me. And I need to be reminded of that. And I'm going to be reminded of that by building an ark, by building an altar. And then notice in 9, what we just read, after that, God told Noah, and you be fruitful and multiply the earth. I am giving you everything. See, I don't think God was like holding out that information until Noah did the right thing. Like, I don't think God was like, I'm not going to give him the keys to everything until he builds me an altar. I think that God is a God of the process. And God knows what's going to happen always, right? But I think God walks alongside with us and is patient with us as we slowly start to come to terms with our limits and his lack of limits. As we slowly start to understand the most powerful position we can be in is a position of surrender. And there was an awesome pastor at Buckhead Church. My church once said, his name is Matt Noblet, but he said like the position of victory is the same position as surrender. your hands up in the air. It's the same position as victory. And I think that that's what we're seeing here. Noah building an altar was him surrendering. I don't know. You just told me to let all these creepy crawling things increase. What does that mean for me and my family? We're going to be outnumbered. So before he got any directive from God, he surrendered, which was the same posture that we have as victory. If you're at a sports game and someone wins, you're like, let's go. Let's go. I was watching the Simone Biles Olympia documentary the other day. She won gold. Let's go. But it's also surrender. So we see Noah surrendering and gaining victory. And then the Lord is like, okay, I wasn't going to not give you everything because I don't love you, but because I want your heart to be prepared to receive it. And by Noah creating an altar, creating a surrender, creating that reminder of the Lord's faithfulness, God was like, okay, I give you everything. You're ready. You're ready to hear that. You're ready. Not because you achieved your way there, but more so because you released your way there. You let go. You let me be the one that leads you and guides you. You didn't come out of that ark and go into that land and say, okay, here's the plan. Here's how we're going to make it. Here's how we're going to survive. Here's how our family name is going to be carried on. That wasn't Noah's deal. He built an altar. He built an altar. And then I think what's so important is when we go down in 4-6, which we just read, where basically it's like, it's all these verses about like not eating the blood. I think what's so important about that, it says the life of an animal is in its blood, but you must not eat meat with its life. That is its blood in it. For your lifeblood, I will surely exact punishment. What was the first sin? Eve eating the apple. Or the fruit. What was the second? Cain killing Abel. I imagine there was a part of the Lord that in this time wanted to re-exact and reintroduce and redefine what life is and what that means to God. Life is an animal's, a human's blood. That's life. It's the blood. Whoever sheds human blood by other humans, must his blood be shed. For in God's image, God has made mankind. God is saying, when you kill someone else, you kill me. Not because I can be killed, but because I made mankind in the image of me. And that is the wrong that you do. It's not just an offense on that person and their family. It's an offense on me. It's an attack on me. God wants us to know. It's actually, so what comes to mind right now, I have, I don't know if it's rosacea, which actually fits nicely with talking about skincare at the beginning of this. I don't know if I have rosacea. I never got tested positive for it. I don't even know if you test positive for it, but I know that my cheeks get really red sometimes, especially in the cold, especially I can't have a heater on my face. That's a no bueno. That's a no-go. Like a car heater, I cannot turn my car heat on in the winter on my face. It has to be on my feet because my face will get so red. And I remember in high school, I'd be so embarrassed because I didn't know how to do makeup back then. And when I would just get really flustered. And sometimes I felt like I couldn't control it. It looked like I was really embarrassed, but I wasn't embarrassed. But then I got embarrassed because it looked like I was embarrassed, especially if a cute boy was talking to me. Or just in a friend group setting or a group project or something. And it was all this blood would start rushing to my cheeks. And I was just so embarrassed by it. And then, you had like groups of girls or people that would comment on it, and that made it so much worse. But that's kind of what came to mind, is like the life is in the blood. And whether that's the shedding of blood by actual killing, but also I think what this points to here is, when you hurt someone, when you hurt someone's feelings, what typically happens? Or when your feelings have been hurt in your life, what typically happens? Your heart rate increases, your blood starts pumping a ton in your body because your heart rate is increasing a ton. If you're like me, your cheeks might get really red, your face might get really red, your neck might get splotchy. That's all blood. The life is in the blood. When I go to my medical center to figure out all my levels and all that, they're testing my blood. The life is in the blood. And so I think what that just shows is like, it's not just don't kill people. It's how do you treat people with walking, living blood of life in them? How do you make them feel when you could be mean, or when your friends are being mean, or when you could gossip, or when you could judge? How would that make their heart feel? All that blood pumping in, how would that make them feel? Would it make their face get red and their necks get spotchy because they're embarrassed? Like, how would that make them feel? The life is in the blood. Whoever sheds human blood by other humans must his blood be shed. For in God's image, God has made humankind. And what does all of this point to? The blood of Christ. The blood of Christ. Christ shed his blood. Because from the very beginning, God said, I will exact punishment. God is a just God. He's a righteous God. He doesn't go against his word. He is faithful even when we are faithless. He cannot help himself. That's in 2 Timothy. Like, God is a just God. So there has to be punishment for wrong. And what did God do? He sent his son to bear that sacrifice. Jesus chose to come down to be that sacrifice for that punishment because we couldn't bear it, even though we caused it, even though we deserve it. But God says, I now give you everything. But make no mistake, I give you everything, but I'm telling you that the punishment for blood is this. And yet I still give you everything. So why? Why did God create humanity? Why did God create humanity if they knew they were going to do this, and he knew that he was going to have to send Jesus, and Jesus knew he was going to have to come and die a brutal death? Why? Well, I think that points back to in Hebrews 12:2, which one day we will get there. One day. Will not be today. Well, today we will read this. We will read it today. I didn't have this prepared, actually. I mean, obviously, I told you guys I never prepared for these because I want it to be literally together in the word from the heart. But this reminds me of Hebrews 12:2, which talks about why Jesus basically went to the cross. Okay, this is Paul writing, Hebrews 12:2. Or let's start in Hebrews 12 and then go to 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, we must get rid of every weight and the sin that clings so closely. We run with endurance the race set out for us, keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set out for him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. Why did God create us if he knew from the beginning that his son was going to have to bear that punishment? Jesus did for the joy set before him. What is the joy set before him? Us. In our perfected, holy, righteous, heavenly nature. This story, every single part of it, points us back to the one that is love itself. and was designed for communion and relationship and community. And more than anything in the world, God wanted a group of his children to be able to share that with. So time and time again, despite our disobedience, God makes a way and a path because he is the way and the truth and the life. Dear Lord, thank you. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for your light and your love. May we see you in every part of all that we do. Amen.